Hi, welcome to the Outcome-Centric Selling Academy, to our course on proactive targeting, and to our first module where we'll be focusing on key principles. So let me throw out a couple of questions. Firstly, why bother targeting and prioritizing? Well, I think Neil Rackham, the author of Spin Selling, had it right when he identified targeting as the single most important factor separating top performing salespeople from the rest is that they recognize the value of planning and preparation. And what about the benefits of targeting? Well, you don't need to take my word for it. If you look at published research by Gartner, by Forrester, by Rain Group, and many other researchers, they conclude that the time invested in targeting and prioritization is always amply repaid in terms of increased sales effectiveness, shorter sales cycles, larger average deal values, and higher win rates. And who wouldn't want that? So when it comes to targeting and prioritizing, there are four key considerations. And the first one is, what are the key business issues that your organization is best in class at helping your customers address? And within that, what are the common characteristics of the ideal customers that are most likely to be suffering from the issues you've chosen to target? And within that, what are the key buying roles within these ideal customers who are most likely to be responsible for dealing with these issues? And finally, what are the key trends and trigger events that are most likely to cause these key buying roles in your ideal customers to decide they need to take action about the targeted issue? So let's look at this in a little more detail. And let's start with key business issues. And the thing you need to think about here is, what are the most common key business issues, not functional requirements, that your organization has a track record of success in helping your customers address? What are the obvious symptoms of the issues you've chosen to target? How will you and how will your prospective customers recognize that they're suffering from the problem? What is the typical impact of failing to deal with these issues at both the organizational and personal levels? And there's a key principle here. We need to focus on high priority business issues, the things your customer needs to fix, avoid, or achieve, and not just on their functional needs. In other words, not on just the features your customer thinks they need. So that's key business issues. Now, when we think about ideal customers, what we're trying to answer is, how can we identify the organizations that are most likely to want to address the key business issues that we've chosen to target? What are the common characteristics of these ideal customers, and how can you recognize them? What are the common characteristics of the organizations that are never likely to be good customers, and how can we avoid them? And that's a key principle here. And it is that we need to think beyond the obvious demographic considerations of size, sector, location, and so on, and actively consider structural and cultural behavioral indicators, as well as their current priorities and initiatives. Now, key buying roles. Well, these are the individuals and stakeholders within your ideal customers who are most likely to be responsible for making decisions about the business issues you've chosen to target. And there are typically at least three types of key buying role. The first type, the solution champion or champions, is the person who recommends the best solution option. The executive sponsor or sponsors promotes the project within their organization as a high priority. And the ultimate approver or approvers, also known as the economic buyers, have the final say. Now, sometimes in small, simple transactions, they can be the same person, but it's pretty rare for that to be the case in complex, uh, lengthy strategic purchases. So you need to think, if you're trying to target, what are the most common positions and titles for these key roles? What are the people in these positions typically responsible for? What do they care about? How is their success measured? How can you identify, reach out, and engage these individuals? What other stakeholders are also likely to be involved in the decision and approval process? And there's a key principle here, and it is pretty simple. We need to focus our energies on the people who can actually make change happen. And then the fourth factor, trends and trigger events. And this is about identifying the key trends and trigger events that might be going on inside or outside their organization that might cause the key buying roles in key target customers to acknowledge that they might have to take decisive action to address one of the business issues you're choosing to target. And so you might ask, how can we recognize when one of these trends or trigger events is currently impacting one or a number of your prospective customers, even if they don't realize it yet themselves? How can you use this intelligence to initiate a conversation with one or a number of the key buying roles within the affected prospect? And the key principle here is that the previous three factors, business issues, ideal customers, key buying roles, help us to define our long-term targets. Key trends and trigger events help to define where your short-term priorities should lie. So if we build on all of this targeting, we need to then turn that into an intelligent prospecting program. And the way you can maximize the effectiveness of your prospecting is by, firstly, targeting significant business issues that you're particularly well equipped to deal with and which you have a track record of success in addressing, by identifying the organizations that match your ideal customer profile and therefore have the potential to become happy and profitable customers, reaching out to those key buying roles within those organizations that are likely to care about the issue and to have the power to do something about it. And yes, watching out for the key trends and trigger events that are likely to cause these prospects to conclude that urgent action may be required. And it's very important when we're prospecting that we maintain some level of messaging and positioning consistency, whilst at the same time exploring the issues we've chosen to target from multiple different perspectives. And therefore, it makes a great deal of sense to use a combination of outreach themes and tactics to persuade your potential customer that it will be in their interest to engage in a conversation with you. So, a quick summary of the key principles that underpin intelligent targeting. Firstly, salespeople and sales organizations that systematically prioritize, plan, and prepare for their activities consistently outperform their less effective colleagues. And they're rewarded by, amongst other benefits, shorter sales cycles, average deal values, and higher win rates. Who wouldn't want that? Now, 4 key considerations when choosing how and where to optimize, to target, and to prioritize your sales and your prospecting efforts. 1, absolute clarity about the key business issues you're really good at addressing. 2, the common characteristics of your ideal customers, those organizations who are most likely to be suffering from the issues you've chosen to target and to want to do something about it. 3, who are and what are the key buying roles within these ideal customers who are most likely to be responsible for dealing with those targeted issues? And 4, what are the key trends and trigger events that are most likely to cause your most valuable prospects to decide they need to take urgent action? And how can you leverage this intelligence to make your prospecting more effective? Well, we're going to be going in detail to answer each of these questions in the subsequent modules in this course, and we'll address each of those factors as we go. So, as always, as we come to the end of the module, I'd like to encourage you to pause and reflect and to ask you, how has this module helped you to think differently? How maybe have we helped you to change the way you think about how to best target your most valuable prospects in response to the ideas and concepts we've introduced into this first module? And more important, what are you now going to do differently as a result? As you reflect, what are you now determined to start doing? What do you now realize that maybe you need to stop doing? And how are you going to make what you were already doing when it came to targeting even more effective as a result? And I want to encourage you to not only think this through, but pause, reflect, and write it down and return to those points that you've made to yourself as you go forward and put them into practice in your current and future active opportunities and prospecting activities. So there we have it. I hope those foundational principles have been helpful, and you can see how they might relate to you targeting more effectively within your territory. And I want to wish you the very best of success in starting to apply those principles. But I'm sure you want to learn more. So I want to encourage you to return and join me again online in the very near future for our next module, where I'm going to explore in more detail this critical foundational topic of targeting key business issues. And I hope to see you online for that very soon.